Today is a new day to start again. Take each moment one by one and do the best you can. Yesterday doesn't matter, it only serves as a ladder. Tomorrow isn't guaranteed, so make your plans accordingly. Today is a new day to start again. Take each moment one by one and do the best you can. Grand Rising, today is a new day to start again. It is 5/13/2025. Well, I picked up another subscriber. That's pretty exciting. Getting some views on my last video. My shoulder's been tight. This one here. I was trying to think about which one was the shoulder that I had so many problems with, but I think it was this one. And it's tight right there. When I go back, it's still okay. I just think I need to strengthen it. I'm not sure what the tightness is from. I would assume it's where it was torn. But so I'm a little bit worried about it, but I'm just going to keep muscling. I keep trying to get to where I can start playing golf again because it's really important to me. I've been doing a lot of yoga, but I haven't been doing any golf yet. Because of now, it's this shoulder. I keep giving myself excuses. I've said keep about 4 times already, and that bothers me. But one thing on these videos, I try to do a daily video. I did not do one yesterday. I started to do it in the morning. My mornings start about 2 a.m. if you want to get a little update on my life. So I drank a couple cups of coffee, and I didn't feel well, and I had the day off. I just decided I'm going to take the day off from doing a video. And that now it's gotten a bunch of views, so maybe I should do that more. So yesterday was kind of a nice day for me, and I really enjoyed doing the yoga. I've been coming along because I'm doing it every week. This is like the 8th week in a row I've done yoga, and I'm doing it 4 times. And these ladies that run these yoga classes, some of them are pretty intense, and they're making me do some stuff that is helping me because I wouldn't be doing it myself. And so I also, what I did after I did my first session of yoga was I actually went and did my grocery shopping because my financial situation right now, I don't need to be spending money outside of anything that I really need. So I just made sure I had enough food for like the next 2 weeks preparing for this trip that I'm getting ready to go on because I don't really know what my finances are. I get paid tomorrow, and I'm really actually not sure how much I get paid. So we're going to find out. It's enough for me to be able to make this trip work at least. And so that's kind of what I'm moving into now. Part of the problem of living so close to the vest with the amount of financial capital that you have to work with is it restricts what you can do. But I still wanted to enjoy my day. So when you don't have very much money and you want to go look for stuff, you go to Goodwill. And I'm telling you, sometimes when you walk into a place like that and you're looking for different things in your life, there's a lot of things that'll pop out at you that are like, I want that, I want that, I want that. So it's hard to keep putting things back. But I did pretty well. I actually was looking for a Pacers paraphernalia of some sort. I wanted a shirt, but I couldn't find any. I've been looking for them the last couple days just so I can have something to wear. I did find a bag though while I was looking. That was one of those, I think it's an Aldi's bag or one of those types of reusable bags, but it was only 99 cents and it said Pacers on it. So I was like, that's a score. I can handle 99 cents. And then, let me think, I found this hat for $1.99 and this hat for $1.99, both of which I'm going to use. I found this because I'm going to be playing golf. This was laying on the rack. It is a brand new golf glove. I mean, it's Dunlop, but I like this kind of thing here because it just feels good and it's perfectly fit. And it was $1.99. So as a son of a golf pro that was able to take 6 gloves off the rack, a putter a week, I never had to worry about paying for anything in golf. to the guy that I am now, that's a huge score, that golf glove. I was so happy about it. And I put it on. And then I had this moment because I remember my dad was a golf pro and he owned a golf course. And that's what I grew up under. I'm going to talk a lot about Jimbo in this video. This is going to be a long one. Why not? So anyways, what he would teach me was, when I was putting on a golf glove, was you want it to be able to pull it up like that. And you want your fingers to be all the way at the ends of it, but it does feel pretty tight. So when I was a kid and I was putting the glove on and he was trying to make it fit, especially because I had little hands, and so he wanted to put me in a ladies small, and I'm like, I don't want to be a ladies small. So I would try to tell him I wanted a bigger glove. It was cute because when I was putting the glove on and I did the little pull thing, and I've tried to do that with my daughters, and it was kind of the same experience. They didn't really agree with what I was saying either. If it's really tight, it will get looser and it'll fit better. So you're supposed to have it pretty tight on your hand because your grip is really important on the golf glove. It's so funny to start this off that way. I wasn't even going to talk about that at all. That was all on the fly. So let me get into, so I went to the Goodwill and it's impulse control is what it helps me with because I want to buy a lot of stuff. So what else did I get? I only got 4 things. I got this, and the bag. I feel like I got one other thing. I was going to get candles. So later I went to another Goodwill and I ran into an old friend's mother who had passed away. And that was really cool for me because after I was walking in the aisles and looking a little bit, I actually felt the presence of this girl that was really important to me in my life because I just saw her mom. And it kind of was cool because I felt like a little bit like I got to talk to her, but I don't think it really was. It is what it is. So anyways, that's how I feel about mysticism now. I like to play in it, and whatever it is, it is. If it's not, it's not. But when I'm looking in the Goodwill stuff, you can really find some scores. So I have a pair of brown sandals, but the problem with brown sandals, they're really nice, is that there's only so many colors you can match with. And I'm trying not to have a large wardrobe here. So I've got some black shorts that are cargo shorts and swim trunks, which are very adaptable for my life. And I got these brown sandals, so it doesn't work great. So I found a pair of black sandals, and I wasn't going to buy them because I already got brown sandals, and I don't really need black sandals right now. But as I went through my whole process, at the end of the day, at the time of me leaving, it still was a good value. So they were $9.99 for some really good fitting black sandals. So I bought those as well. I probably didn't need to be spending $10, but they're going to be very useful. I'm going to use them. And I have faith that I'm going to be able to make enough money to be able to cover a $9 pair of sandals. Because they're probably $30 sandals. All right, let's move on. That was nice. I did talk to my mom's friend. That was nice. So why are our lives, what I was starting to think about was my mom passed away at 64 years old. And my mom's father was 94 when he passed away. And I think he probably could have went longer. He just had an accident where he fell. And I think that ultimately was what did him in. But he also had a couple bouts with I don't even know how to say it, pneumonia? Why is it spelled that way? I know he was really scared of pneumonia in his later years for sure. But anyways, it was just kind of tragic though for my mom to pass that early. She had so much more life left in her. Then I was thinking about my dad, because I do attribute a lot of my time in these videos to my mom. I was thinking a lot about my dad and how little I've actually thought about him recently, even though I'm like in an area where my dad was very prominent in my life. But my dad died at 74. So he died about 8 years later after my mom passed away, maybe 9. And no, maybe it was less. I think it was 7-ish. And he had kind of a rough go at the end. It was pretty fast. He had an infection in his toe. I have a lot of regret about, I get into that a little bit here. You're not supposed to have regret though, so I'm just kind of working through it. But what I was trying to pinpoint here was, why are our lives cut short? The people that are, like my mom's life was cut short. And what does that mean? And what did we miss? And what did they miss? They didn't deserve that. They serve a sentence. It's a life sentence, basically, is what we live here. And then that deserve, we serve. That's what our life is. We're serving. What happens when we die? And then I got into a weird question, because dye and dye, the color dye, do we just change color when we die? Does our soul just change color? Because they say we have an essence. And then, are you afraid to not be? And then I looked into afraid. An A in frayed. What does frayed mean? Why is fear? And does fear have something to do with sound? With hearing? Fear? I don't know. During the recent run, I've thought about my mom a lot more than my dad. So that's kind of what I wanted to devote this video to. And we're at 11:11 is when I'm starting. I'm on the first page. I'm sorry. But I'm going to commit myself to this. This might be an hour-long video. I don't even know if I have enough storage, so it's going to be probably a part A, part B kind of thing. All right, saddle up. One of my favorite moments in a show, it was called This Is Us. And it was at a very emotional time in my life. And I was alone, looking for something to do, and Netflix and, basically television was an option when you had a life where you were getting off at 8 o'clock at night and you really had nothing to do. So I was working a 10 to 8 job, and my kids were in another state because they were relocated, and I didn't have a lot of, I was just trying to find stuff to do. And this show, This Is Us, came out. And the first episode of that show, if you've never seen This Is Us, I don't want to spoil it for you, because that first episode was amazing. And the first season was really good. The second season was, I feel like it really was good. And then it just, as a lot of these shows do, they just slowly get worse and worse. And then at the end, it's just not as recognizable as it was. It is fun to get into these characters, though, because they become almost part of your family. You start to really identify with a lot of the characters when you get really devoted to a show. Another show that's really good is Parenthood. I watched that while I was still married with my wife at the time, and it was a bonding show that we had. But then we got divorced, and then the show continued, and I watched it on, and it was really good. So that helped me. They kind of, I think, because Parenthood and This Is Us are very similar types of shows, it was very similar how those two kind of evolved for me. But the best part of the This Is Us show, really, for me, at the end of it was, there's this doctor at the end of the first episode, and he has a line at the end of the first episode, I think. But it's a line that they use later, and they revolve it through the show. And basically, they have this devastating moment as a young family. And the doctor comes in, and he's trying to explain, because he is somewhat responsible. He's in the middle of the process of this horrible tragedy. And he has to relay the message to them. And as he's doing that, he's like, sometimes things just, go really bad in your life. And you have to put it together. Yeah. But the line is, sometimes you have to take the mess and make something resembling, I'm not even doing it justice, resembling lemonade. Resembling in the way he says it, because he has to relay his own failure almost in this tragedy. It's not his fault, and they know it's not his fault, and he's trying to explain it's not my fault, but it just is what it is. And from this tragedy, at base level, we have the only thing we have to do from here is to move forward and make the best of it. And so I just really like that whole, because I always heard the whole, when life gives you lemons, you make lemonade, and everybody's like makes that to be the natural process of life. But sometimes you just can't, you're not good enough to make it into lemonade, or you just don't have the proper stuff too, but you got to keep moving forward anyways. And the stuff that you make, it's not as good as lemonade. It's better, even though it doesn't taste as good as perfect lemonade, because it's the stuff that you made. So stupid. We're at 16 minutes. So now I'm going to get to the core of what my true belief is. You ready for that? Did I ever ring my bell? Let's call on the Holy Spirit now. I'm into the Holy Spirit. I really love it. So self-awareness. So self-awareness is your first ultimate tool. Your awareness is your tool. We have two main tools that have been given to us. I would say your self-awareness is actually what I would call Athena's butterfly. Most animals out here, who knows what their awareness level is? We say that their awareness level is less than ours, but we really don't know that for sure. All you can be fully aware of is your own self-awareness. That's what the whole point of this is. But I do think that possibly we have a higher consciousness level than it seems the other beings on this planet, if you want to call it a planet. Planet. It's a net. Anyways, your self-awareness for me is playing in this realm, in what you would call the 3D, the ego. This is what we present to the world. This is what we are living in. Our reality is what our self-awareness is. And for me, that's attributed to Mother Earth, or Gaia. That's what our blood, our sweat, and our tears is all devoted to our mother, because we all come from Mother. And the problem is, this is not really identified in what the other major thing that we have given to us, which is logic or light. That is our discipline. So our self-awareness is what we're able to be aware of in our setting. And that is what we know that we are able to do in this reality, what we would call the bar nuts of it. This is the skepticism of a person. Like, I got to be able to see it and touch it and feel it. It's the scientific method. This is the self-awareness. This is what we're able to find whenever we're in self-awareness. It's what we can grab a hold of. It's the dirt, it's the blood, the sweat, and the tears. It's the iron, it's the ore, it's the earth. It's also the water. It's everything that we can touch, drink, taste, feel, love. That is honoring Mother. And because we don't realize that, sometimes we darken it into like this fire, brimstone, devil lust, the heart of like the deep darkness of lust and survival of the fittest, the Darwinistic kind of idealism, that basically it's self-preservation. All of that isn't inherent to us, and that is still, but that's attributed to Mother. That's honoring Mother. So the light is logic. That is our ability to take that awareness. And what I would say it's attributed to, I was listening to, I can't remember how to say his name, Santos Bonici, or I think this is how to say his name. I hate that I can't attribute to these people the way that they should be attributed to, but you can only watch him for about 3 minutes and you'll be 100 times smarter. But he talks about astrology a lot. I got lost. It's this right, he called it the right side of the brain, basically. So you have two hemispheres of your brain, and I think the right is your self-awareness. And that's what that is talking about. That's where alchemy lies. But then there's also the logic of light, and that's where astrology lies, I think. And that's more in tune with the planets and the planets and the sun and the moon. But it's possible that the sun and the moon are more earthbound and that the celestials are even beyond the sun and the moon. I think that they actually are. So I would say that, like, if you're going to give a hierarchy, if it's going to go up in like layers of levels, the heavens are where Jupiter is. And then the sun is a whole other thing with the moon. Possibly the moon is below the sun. I think the moon is on its own path, much closer to us. And maybe more physical than the sun is. I think the moon is completely different. The lunar is completely different than all of that, obviously. Those little things that we have going around the other planets that we say is the same as our lunar, I don't know is the same. Possibly could be, but we don't know for sure, in my opinion, unless we landed on the moon in the first place, which is kind of where we have to start. I'd like to see like somebody go get one of those trucks and get some shovels and then bring that back on one of Elon Musk's rockets that come and land like that, and then come out with the dust. And I want to watch that happen. That I'd be fine with that. That would probably make it pretty hard not to, because that's a big show. I'm sure that people will pick it apart, but I think that would be something that would make it a lot easier to fall into. I'm sure we're going to get there with this AI. We'll see. Where am I going with all this? So your self-awareness and your logic. What I'm trying to say is what we're brought onto is this Bible that we have structuring our world, and it's the Lord our Father. That's Elohim is what has become our Father. Elohim is what I would call Jupiter, more above that, Kronos. And then I would call our Father more in line with Zeus, maybe, or Saturn. Whatever. What I'm saying, we have it attributed to this Abrahamic father, and that probably exists as well. That might even be the Titan, or that might be the God. They're all just descriptions of something that was before us, or probably coming in a different cycle of time. I think that there's different eras according to where the celestials are, and I wouldn't call it time. I mean, I just think it's different eras. And as you get further along or higher in the archy of the vantage point, you can see it in more of like different wrinkles, different flows of, so you can go like to the 1970s and look at that versus the 1870s and the 1770s and the 1670s. And you can see that basically that same rhythm if you want to put it in chronological order, but it doesn't necessarily go by the same flow of what they say, 1970s, 1870s, 1770s. Those are just arbitrary markings. And you have to look at both between the culture of what we have, what's been left in voice and song, versus what has been written, and then also correlate that with what has been structured on our ground as an expression of humanism, if you really want to get a proper understanding. Did I lose everybody? Where am I at? I thought this was supposed to be about Jimbo, my dad. So you have, in my opinion, the self-awareness, and I think that that's your blood. And then you have the logic, which I think is your breath. So I think your blood and your breath, that's what we really have as humans. And then there's also the oil, which is through our lymphatic nodes. And that is something that's oil and crystals. It's also running through our bodies. And that's probably something to do with the celestials as well. And then there is Mercury. Why is all this important? What I'm saying is what they're trying to do is have this light being the only way to follow. And they're using guilt. But let me just read what I have, because it's actually pretty good. I think there's some kind of poem here. So I'm just going to read it verbatim. This is a train wreck. We're at 25 minutes. Why is this important? Truly following the way is not just following the light or dancing in the dark with the devil. Father made the devil with mother. The devil is both light and dark. But the devil, he does not exist without Father, without light. And Father does not exist without Mother, Earth. But guess what? Father, the light, is not Mother Earth. They are not the same. The light is source. The light gives all life. Gives all life. The sun. But I don't think the sun is actually source. I think it's just the point of reference, I guess. All of us have a relationship with our sun. Trust me, it's different. My relationship with my son is not the same as your relationship with your son. Where does this leave us? This Is Us. It's such a great show, I'm telling you. You should watch it. If you've never seen that first episode and nobody's told you about it, go find This Is Us. I'm sure there's some way you can watch This Is Us's first episode and just go blind and watch it, because the ending's really cool of the first episode. As you become more aware, you must use the light. As you become aware of the light, of what the sun is, and how it reveals darkness. So then I've got a little poem. Be purple and gray every day in every way. That's it. I don't know what the name of it is. Be purple and gray every day in every way. If you think about that for a little bit, it's pretty good, because purple, I'll give it a little bit of context. Purple is the merging of red and blue. Red and blue is very important. I think it has to do with right and left. Also, kind of getting back to the Santos Benici. I think that's his name. And then gray is light and black, or I think it's really light and dark versus white and black. I got in trouble for saying something about white man, and I think it was just assumed that I'm like, I don't think that there's any, I do think there's something to the white man being instituted into it, this society. And I think that the white man is the most controllable being in this society. So I do not think that Adam and Eve were white. That's what I think. I think the white man has possibly been added. The most recent added feature, it was the whitewashing of our human race. The adding of whiteness to the human race has been an afterthought, in my opinion. But at one time, the white man was used, it was integrated in to our society because it was structured to be controllable. It's terrible to say, and most people are gonna, maybe I get flagged for that. It's not that I'm saying I'm saying it's what was used, and all of us now we're really a blend. But the whiteness was added, and we should try to understand what it is about the whiteness and who the heck added the whiteness, because it was added, in my opinion, probably after the Tower of Babel, probably at the same time as Latin, if I'm gonna guess. But I'm just guessing. I just lost myself here. So anyways, let's go to ultraviolet, infrared, the blinding light. So when light gets too bright, why is it that it's darkest before the dawn? Before the light comes around, not from above. Did you get that? That's why it's darkest before the dawn, because the light comes around. It doesn't come above. I don't know if that makes any sense, but that's what I wrote down. So I get into it now. We're going to go into Jimbo. This is probably going to be a 2-part video. So why don't we just make it a 2-part? No, I can keep going. So this is an intermission for you if you need to do something, because I'm going to go get myself a cup of coffee, and I'm going to bring you with me while I get a cup of coffee. We're on an intermission, and I'm going to talk about Jimbo here instead of the white man. Listen, I'm not a white supremacist. I think, like I said, I don't think it's the most, I just think it's what was added. Literally, white was used to whitewash what was already a culture, and it was done that way because they were able to integrate, in my opinion, if whoever's had any kind of impact on the human race. It's hard to do this one-handed. This is weird. This is probably not great production value. But I found that leaving you guys there by yourself is probably not great either. My house is somewhat messy, especially the floor. I've been keeping the counters and like the surfaces that I have to deal with on a daily basis. They've been pretty good. They could do better. My sink situation stinks, actually. I wish I had like a little dishwasher, figuring out a way to put a little dishwasher in here so that I can just kind of go from one to another. Or I could really just use the sinks better. They're big enough. The counter space isn't great because I got a lot of stuff on these counters that I really don't use that often. I did get an air fryer, and I've been using that a lot more recently. I want to eat healthy, but trying to eat healthy on a budget. I heard somebody talking about how, isn't it messed up that we live in a society where if you want to try to live healthier, it literally costs more money while we're throwing away sewage food by the thousands and thousands and thousands of pounds every day while people are starving in certain places. You guys can see that I'm a fraud here. These aren't real books. That's not a real wolf. All right. We still on. 31 minutes. Did you guys get anything? Did you get a coffee? So my dad had large ears, big old ears. His name was James William Clark. Pretty strong name right there. My dad had some pretty big ears. His head was pretty big though as he got older, so it wasn't as obvious that he had big ears. Probably his most prominent feature though, other than his pipe, he also carried a tobacco pipe. According to my dad, when he was a kid, the older kids called him Dumbo because there was a story, Dumbo the elephant, who had really large ears. And because my dad had big ears, they called him Dumbo, and it bothered him. So as an 8-year-old, as my dad was telling me that story, I thought I was supposed to play the smartest, not the smartest, but I always did try to play the smartest kid. But I think as a kid growing up in the 80s, because we were exposed to these television sitcoms that became part of our schedule, it was television shows on this television set that was shown right before bedtime on weekday nights as kind of a reward for kids after they'd done their homework. They could watch Growing Pains, or what was the other one? Wonder Years, or Who's the Boss was a big one. There's a bunch of them. It's funny how the shows changed in our parents' era, my parents' era, as they were being brought up. They had shows more like Leave It to Beaver, and they had shows that were whitewashed. I'm racist. Okay, there we go. Let's just get it off the cuff. Anyways, I'm just showing what was obvious. And then you had the Cosby Show. That was one of my favorite shows. I still really like the Cosby Show. I think it was just a wonderful show. Tragic what happened. So anyways, as a kid, what I was trying to get into is, didn't you feel like you were part of a sitcom? Especially when you had your family dinners and stuff, and sometimes you felt like you're supposed to throw in the one-liners and you're waiting for the laughs, like to hear the laugh track. Sometimes you just do things because that's the part you're supposed to be playing. And then they actually like show you how to play the part. I thought it was kind of funny. But I started calling my dad Jimbo because I thought it was funny. He told me the story about Dumbo. So his name was Jim or James. And sometimes my dad didn't play dad that well, so I called him Jimbo. And I thought I was pretty smart. I'm not sure that I made the name up. I don't know. I can't remember for sure, but that's what I called him. And I think it's taken a little bit away from who he really was, because he was James W. Clark, James William Clark. He had a lot of prestige. He did a lot of things really good. In his young days, he was a son of a Kentucky tobacco farmer. His dad owned a farm, a tobacco farm, part of a farm with some other brothers. So they all had a portion of the farm. I've tried to dig deeper into it. It's difficult because my dad didn't keep great records, and there was kind of a big shift in our family where they were two brothers and they really didn't talk to each other after both their parents passed away. And maybe before that. I was young, and actually I was born shortly before my dad's father passed away. And there's this big moment where they say he touched my forehead. So I have this spot on my forehead that was touched by is it my great granddad or just my granddad? Just my granddad. I didn't even know my grandfather. So I never really got to know my grandmother either on my dad's side, which is kind of tragic, honestly. I never really got to, that's why I don't have much exposure to that family. And it's kind of a shame. They tried to, we went and visited when I was young, but I just don't really remember. I remember some great conversations, being involved, and I thought it was really neat. My mom and my dad used to go to one of my uncles, actually on my grandmother's side of the family, and there was a great relationship there with my grandma's brother, I guess. So this doesn't have anything to do with the Clarks. But I thought that was very interesting, the relationship that I saw there, because there was definitely intelligence. And I enjoyed watching my mom, who was very intelligent, and my mom's uncle, I guess would be her uncle. And they had great conversations that I would sneak in on sometimes, just listening in on the side as a 8-9-year-old boy. But also there was a great relationship with my mom and my dad's mom. And I know that I had a great relationship with my dad's mom, but I don't really remember a ton about it because I was so young. But I guess what I'm getting into is, where did I go with all this? I was trying to stay on my dad. Jimbo is just, I think what I've lost about it is he was this young kid, and he was on a Kentucky tobacco farm, and he didn't want to be a tobacco farmer. And what I think is cool about his story is he learned about golf in a rural Kentucky area. He just fell in love with the game, and he chased that for the rest of his life, and ended up getting to own a golf course, and had a really nice run for a long time, and had a beautiful wife. But I think that's what I kind of got into here. He met my mom, and I think my mom pretty much defined my dad's life. I don't think my dad would have ever been what he became if it wasn't for my mom. But then I went back into this, that what's lost in that, though, is before he met my mom, I mean, he was a very responsible young man. In some ways, he had a beekeeper. He was a beekeeper. He got his own bee farm going because he wanted to make money, and his dad allowed him to put a bee farm on his property because they had some land. And he's out there in the middle of nowhere in Kentucky, and he makes himself a little bee farm. And I guess my dad took care of it and made a bunch of money selling honey. I mean, how smart is that? But then he also found this love for golf. And his dad also let him make a little golf course on the land right by his house. Use coffee cans for holes and have little flags in it. And supposedly, according to the lore of it, he would charge his friends money to come play on his little golf course that he made on his land. But that's how he got into golf. And then he didn't want to be a Kentucky tobacco farmer. He wanted to be a golfer. So he started playing golf and found a way to become a pro. He did not like being a pro. He didn't have a college degree. And part of being a pro was you were going to these clubs, and they were like almost these secret societies of people that are just highly elite, affluent. They have a whole hierarchy of people that hire people on. And so somehow, but that's where you made some good money. So my dad, this Kentucky tobacco farmer with big ears, gets put into these clubs, but he's good at golf, and he knows how to shine up enough to be able to not get himself in trouble. But he didn't like, you weren't even allowed, the biggest thing he had was you weren't even allowed to go into the pro shop, into the clubhouse, or into the country club part of it, the elite part. When you were a club, you were like an employee, and you were treated almost like a secondhand citizen, and he did not like that. But he used it for a while, and then along the ways, he got himself into public golf because golf started to become more popular. And then there was a stretch in the 70s and 80s where golf pros were able to go to golf clubs, and they were converting from being fully private into like a semi-private operation. And they were, especially in city-owned operations, I'm just saying it was a honey hole. He went from being a bee honey farmer to finding golf and getting into a honey hole situation, because he found a place in Michigan where he was basically the city employee running 2 different golf courses at the same time, where he was allowed to bring in golf carts. So he had somehow got capital available to be able to purchase golf carts. And then he rented those golf carts to golfers that wanted to ride the golf carts. And they were paying low fees to this golf course, which was owned by the city, and he was basically running that business for the city. But at the same time, he got the subcontract off without having to pay any utilities and have a golf club, create a golf driving range where he got to buy the golf balls, but then rent out that space. So basically, he had the access to all of these fluid forms of cash flow. And all he is a city employee, and he's also paid by the city, so he's a grifter, is what he is. And he also got to like sell golf balls, and he told me about this. This was what was really exciting, is as he's becoming this affluent person, he's now a rep to sell golf balls through his shop, which he has no utilities, doesn't have to pay any costs at all, just gets to get the full profitability. So now he has these accounts with Titleist or these major corporations, and there's a company in town called Dow Chemical that has all these employees, and they have all this money to spend, and they want to buy corporate golf balls. And my dad, with his old Kentucky tobacco farm and charm, comes in there and gets an account with them, which is just a honey hole account where he doesn't even have to do anything. All he has to do is treat these guys well that give him a whole bunch of money to put little logos on these golf balls. And then through Titleist, because Titleist is giving rewards for people that are selling golf balls, he gets trips to all these amazing places to take his family on that are fully paid for. You want to talk about a wonderful situation? I'd just like to have that for a minute. He's got his pipe smoking around, his beautiful wife she's got her own store. He uses all this capital so that she can have her own store called Joyce, that's middle of town, this affluent, beautiful clothing line. She, I think, gets to merchandise, and she was happy they were like really big deals in this town. And but my dad had a big drinking problem. He liked to drink alcohol. And from what I've understood, I don't know all of it, he was on the brink of really destroying his life. But his parents passed away, and unfortunately, and left him basically a lot of opportunity. And he took that opportunity to go buy a golf course in Kokomo, Indiana. And we had an amazing life there. So in the end, he lived here in this town and ran a golf course for 26 years. My mom was married to him for the first 20 of it. The golf course is on a floodplain. There was a lot of flooding issues, but caused problems, made it very